During the 2015-16 season, a legend would be born. The baby-faced assassin dominated the NBA, averaging 30 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists per game, while shooting 50% from the field and an unheard of 45% from 3 on 11 attempts per game. His Warriors won 73 regular season games, which, of course, was an NBA record. He broke his own record for three-pointers made in a season with 24 games to play, ultimately obliterating his own mark by 116. Despite having a 10% higher usage rate than the other member, Steve Nash. He also became the first member of the 50-40-90 club to lead the NBA in scoring. Curry was the only other player other than Michael the GOAT Jordan to average 30 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, and shoot 50% from the floor in a season. Jordan did it 3 times in 1989, 90, and 92. However, he never did that in a league where he couldn't be double-teamed until he had the ball, and he certainly wasn't making three-pointers like Steph. Curry had an effective field goal percentage of 63% that season, which was second in the NBA behind DeAndre Jordan, who made only 357 shots all year, and 63.5% were dunks. Now that is just ridiculous. He was making outside contested off-balance shots at the same percentage as centers made layups and put-back dunks. Just let that sink in for a second. Curry was a more efficient scorer that season than even Dwight Howard, who attempted 98% of his shots from within 10 feet and dunked 176 times that season. Curry dunked just 7 times. And Curry wasn't just shooting three-pointers every time he came down the floor either. He led the league in shooting percentage on layups that season as well. And at 6'3" and 185 pounds, he shot just shy of 70% from within 3 feet of the rim. Numbers that put him in the company of giant behemoth centers and LeBron James, who is regarded as one of, if not the most physically gifted star ever. Curry was also one of the best pound-for-pound offensive rebounders in the league, averaging an offensive rebound per game despite his small and thin frame, and Golden State's emphasis on transition defense. Curry's adjusted offensive rebound chance percentage of 56.2 was better than Andrew Wiggins, who was listed at 6'8", 200 pounds that season, and was a really good player for the Minnesota Timberwolves at the time. Curry also led the NBA in secondary assists, averaging 2.5 per game to go with his 6.7 actual assists per game. When he was on the court, the Warriors averaged 1.25 points per possession. Something else to note that really stamps his greatness was that the Cleveland Cavaliers had 2 of the most dynamic individual offensive players in the world on their team, LeBron James, who could be considered one of the most dominant NBA players in the history of the game, and Kyrie Irving, who was a basketball genius and wizard. But even they would change the way they played during the playoffs to match what the Curry-led Warriors did, sizing up an eventual NBA Finals rematch. The Cavs were attempting 7 more three-pointers per game in the playoffs, outshooting even the Warriors from distance that postseason. It's not an accident. Curry single-handedly made 2 of the greatest offensive players in LeBron and Kyrie alter their game and strategy just to keep up. Now that is a different type of greatness. The man completely altered the game globally with what he was able to do on the court. And whether you like to admit it or not, it was the same as the impact Michael Jordan had when he was splashed onto the scene in the late 80s and 90s. Everyone wanted to shoot threes, not just threes though, deep, logo threes. It's just insane thinking back on how influential he was. Steph was clearly the best point guard in the league, and ever since then, I don't think any point guard has ever rivaled that historic season in those numbers. Well, that was until at least now. Because what if I told you that OKC's point guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is just as good, maybe if not better than 2015-16 Steph? Not of a global impact and being influential scale, but just talking about the impact on the court. SGA is currently averaging 31 points, 6 rebounds, 2.5 steals, and 6 assists per game while shooting 54% from the field, 34% from 3, and 90% from the free throw line. Those are Michael Jordan type numbers, and that's why he's among the top leaders in the MVP race right now. His most incredible attribute that sets him apart from other point guards is his finishing ability. He's top 10 in field goals made in the restricted area, and second only behind Nikola Jokic in field goals made per game in the paint. Yeah, you heard that correctly. A 6'6" point guard is finishing around the same rate as Nikola Jokic, and he's even finishing at a higher rate than Joel Embiid and Anthony Davis, 2 historically great big men. It's truly amazing to watch just how creative of a finisher he is. It doesn't matter the angle or how far from the basket he is, he will find a way to scissor himself inside the lane and through defenders for difficult extended finishes. And the thing is, he does all of this at a slow, controlled pace. When you talk about smooth and effortless effortless hoopers, he's the guy you think of. I think as regular people and fans like you and me, we sometimes fail to understand and process how hard it is to do extended finishes over players who are 7 feet tall and have near 8-foot wingspans. I mean, like seriously, I can barely make consistent layups versus the air, let alone doing it against freak athletes who have superhuman bodies and athleticism. Playing at such a controlled and slow pace allows him to alter his shots or angles to the basket, which is a lot harder to defend than, let's say, someone like Russell Westbrook, who plays only at 1 speed, and that's extremely fast. That's much easier to defend than how SGA plays, because think about it, you can read the floor better at a slow pace than a fast pace. That's just common sense. And while most elite guards do this, SGA takes it to another level. The efficiency he plays with in the paint and in the mid-range is something we don't see often from players in the point guard position. And that's the thing with 2015 Steph and SGA. They both are so unique because they stand out from the norm of what the traditional quote-unquote true point guard is supposed to do. Not too long ago, the pure point guard was the heartbeat of every team, the maestro directing the motion of plays within the offense. They were the ones who threaded the needle with pinpoint passes, set up teammates for easy buckets, and controlled the tempo of the game. Names like Magic Johnson, John Stockton, and Jason Kidd were synonymous with the art of facilitating and passing the rock. However, as the game has evolved, so has the role of the point guard. The modern NBA demands versatility and a multifaceted skill set from every player. Point guards are now expected to not only orchestrate the offense, but also score at a high level, often stretching the floor with their shooting abilities and driving to the rim with aggression. This shift in the game's dynamics has seen a rise in scoring point guards, often referred to as scoring guards or combo guards, which is a label Curry has had since he first entered the league. These players possess a scoring mentality, looking to create their shot or attack the basket rather than solely focusing on setting up teammates. The emphasis on three-point shooting, pick and roll play, and individual scoring has contributed to this evolution. Back in the day, every player in the starting five had one or at most two things that they were required to do. The point guard's only job was to set up his teammates. The shooting guard's only job was to shoot. The small forwards were usually the players who had a more versatile skill set and looked to score, rebound, and defend, while the power forwards and centers were just there to clog up the paint and, rebound and protect the rim. And now in today's game, the point guard is literally doing most of those things all in one. SGA is nowhere near the shooter Steph was and still is, yet he's still able to average the same amount of points off of drives alone. His ability to draw fouls is what truly makes him unguardable in transition and isolation situations. During the beginning of and mid-2010s, James Harden was basically the only player who drew fouls like his name depended on it. He was most famous for that. Now every 1 and 2 guard is adopting that same strategy. Even some centers like Joel Embiid is doing the same thing, and on crazy efficiency too. SGA is such a high IQ player and understands pace so well that the moment you lay a finger on him, he has dozens of counters that involve drawing fouls. Then, of course, he's a 90% free throw shooter and he converts most of those fouls into points with ones anyways. It's just so wild to see him dominate inside given he has a slim frame. And he really isn't an above the rim athlete like Ja Morant or even going back a little bit, Derrick Rose. His post moves are similar to that of Dwayne Wade, Kobe, and Michael Jordan, who are the best scoring guards ever. But he adds his own unique spin to it with his pace changes and ability to draw fouls. Then he does most of this just within the free throw line, which usually would mean that would be a harder shot since they're closer to the rim protectors, but not for SGA. Then defensively is where he really sets himself apart from 2015-16 Steph, because Steph was a poor defender back then, and SGA is currently leading the NBA in steals and deflections, which is unheard of given what he's asked to do offensively. His long wingspan and high IQ when it comes to anticipating passes is one of the reasons the Thunder are arguably the best defensive team in the league. It's not that common that a player is this historic offensively while still being just as effective on this end. And that is why this video was made. Steph did make the NBA Finals that year, but he didn't play too well compared to what was expected in that Finals versus Cleveland. But only time will tell if SGA can lead his team to the Finals. And if he does, the question whether or not he's better than 2015 Steph will be asked much, and I mean much, more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.